What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Full 90. It is finally time for Season 3 of the Premier League predictions. This video is the long-awaited and anticipated Premier League table predictions for the year 2020 to 2021. I'm recording this on the 4th of September, so obviously the transfer window, isn't yet closed or anything like that. There could still be new players coming into Premier League teams. Obviously, there's been messy rumours flying around for the last few weeks. I don't know if he will go to Manchester City this year, and maybe he'll just go next year. It's really up in the air, and to be fair, someone like Messi coming to the Premier League would probably affect my predictions, but we are going to delay no further. Please drop down in the comments below what you think the Premier League table is going to look like this time at the end of the season next year. And also, if you don't want to do all the teams, you can just do the relegated teams, the top half of the table. I don't know, do it however you like. Top scorer, all that good stuff. I'm just going to give you my Premier League predictions from 20th going up to 1st. And it was very, very difficult to say the least. I'm still not entirely sure as to who's going to win the league, and I'm certainly not sure as to who is going to get relegated. Certainly not all of the positions nonetheless, because if you don't remember, last year I predicted Brighton to go down and they're still here. Shock horror. I predicted Sheffield United, I think, to go down, and they're still here as well. So these predictions are going to be wrong. I just want to preface that. If you have a team in this video that you support and I predict them lower than you think, don't just drop a dislike on the video and all that good stuff. Let's try and smash 200 likes, and then let's get into the video. 20th place. I've seen a lot of people suggest that this team finish here, and I'm going to agree. I'm going to say West Brom because they look weaker than Leeds, obviously, but they do look actually a little bit weaker than Fulham as well at the moment. I don't think they've had a great transfer window, and they just, towards the end of the season, they bottled a lot of games. They didn't make it easy for themselves to get up to the Premier League, and I think they probably were in a good position to win the Championship at one point, but just kept losing, and Leeds kept winning. So I'm going to put West Brom in 20th position, and in recent history, when they've been in the Premier League, they haven't done too great either, so I'm going to go with West Brom there. 19th position, I am going to go with Fulham, because whilst they did well to get past Brentford in the playoffs and deservedly have their place back in the Premier League, I think it's going to be difficult for them at this standard. It just is a different standard to the Championship, and they were losing games here and there in the Championship that you just wouldn't expect from them. So I'm going with Fulham in 19th position. Like I said, this video and these predictions are going to be wrong. Not just to some extent, I'd say to a great extent. No one ever has correctly predicted the Premier League table, and I think that's the beauty of it. So I'd love to hear your predictions, maybe some out there predictions down in the comments below. 18th position, this was very, very difficult. I was tempted to put Crystal Palace there. They didn't end the season well last season. I don't know. Do I put Crystal Palace there? They're really experienced in the Premier League. That does have to be said. So I'm going to stick with what I've got written here, but it could be wrong. It probably is wrong. I'm going to go with Aston Villa. I think they got lucky to stay up in the Premier League in the way that they did, and they were obviously very close to going down, and whilst Palace ended the season in very poor form, they are just a little bit more experienced at the moment than Aston Villa at staying in the current Premier League. So I'm going to go with Aston Villa in 18th, which is a pretty big claim, and Crystal Palace in 17th. I don't know if Zaha will be staying. As I said, the transfer window is still open. It's all up in the air as to whether or not he is going to stay, but I'm going to say Crystal Palace in 17th. In 16th position, I have Newcastle, but perhaps I'm doing them a little bit of a disservice, but if I was going to put them further up the table, it would only be one or two more places, but I just think Newcastle, again, they're not playing to their potential. I think if they play as well as they can play, they should be pushing for the top half of the table and finishing, 12th, something like that. I don't know what's happened to Newcastle, but they always seem to find themselves closer to 15th, so I'm going to put Newcastle here in 16th. Now, in 15th, I'm going to go with Brighton. I think they've got a great coach. I think they're doing good things. And obviously last season I predicted them to finish 20th. I don't remember where they actually ended up finishing. But I'm going to go with 15th here. Give them a little bit more respect. They do have a habit of just winning random games that you really wouldn't expect. Like the game against Arsenal, beating Chelsea. They're pretty good. But unlike a big team that perhaps kind of takes their foot off the gas a bit against smaller teams and has shock defeats, Brighton sort of will try as hard as they can to win every game. So I'm going to give Brighton 15th position. Now, next up in 14th, I have Burnley. Burnley, they're not the most exciting team. The goals they're not really flying in Burnley games. Unless they're playing Man City or Liverpool, Burnley games are typically very low scoring, whoever they're against. And I think they're just going to do what they always do and stay in the Premier League. That's literally all they need. That's the success that they will want, and I'm going to give them 14th position. 13th place I'm giving to last season's standout performers, Sheffield United. I think they sort of, the position that they finished in, I think it was a great achievement for them, but I think it's asking a little bit too much of them this time round. I think they will be, you know, they'll be found out a little bit more because, like I said, they were a bit of a shock last year and teams weren't necessarily sure what to expect. I certainly expected them to get relegated, so I don't think they'll achieve as well as they did in their sort of honeymoon phase. But, you know, based on their performances, we've got to remember how well they did perform. They're pretty well established, you could argue, in the Premier League. I think they've lost Dean Henderson now, but they brought Ramsdale in from Bournemouth, which would be a bit of a downgrade. But they shouldn't get relegated. I don't think they can go from the season they had and then get straight relegated. I think that would be really poor from them, and it's not what I expect from Chris Wilder. So I'm going to give Sheffield United a very respectable 13th position. Coming up in 12th place, this one was, it gets tough to decide any of the places from here on out, to be honest, like their specific position. I'm going to give it to West Ham. I think West Ham will have a better season this time around than they did last season. That being said, I can't remember where they finished, but I think they were looking pretty good towards the end of the season and got themselves out of that relegation fight. And I think they will play better this season overall on the whole, and I'm going to give them the 12th position. They could push higher, they could push for top 10, but I'm just giving them just saying they're going to miss out this time in 12th position. Now in 11th place, I have the highest placed team promoted from the Championship, of course, Leeds. They might do way worse, but to be fair, they were pretty dominant in the Championship. They sealed the Championship quite, you know, convincingly. They were winning game after game after game. They were in great form. They've made some pretty good moves in the transfer window as well. I forget his name, the Spanish. Is it Rodrigo? They signed him. I watched him in the Germany game, and he looked pretty damn good. And I just think Leeds, there's that, I know there is that hype of them, you know, they're essentially like a Premier League giant of old, and now they're finally back in the Premier League after nearly 20 years. So I don't want to hype them up and say, oh, they're going to finish 6th, you know what I mean? They could finish 16th, and that would be a decent season for them just on the basis that they survive. But given how well they performed in the Championship, and they certainly look more convincing winning the Championship than Norwich did the year prior, who obviously got relegated, I'm going to give them 11th place. Now, 10th position is a bit of an interesting one. I'm going to go for Southampton because I think they're doing really, really well. They had a bit of a tough start to the season, and last year, I think I predicted Southampton to finish 17th, and I got absolutely slated for it in the comments. And then the first half of the season, they looked nailed on to finish down there. They were potentially facing a relegation battle, but then they turned it around and played the way that a lot of people were expecting them to play. And now I'm giving them their dues, and I'm saying that they're going to finish in 10th position, because let's not forget, a few years ago, Southampton were finishing top table, you know, 7th place. They were almost like the Wolves of today. A few years ago, Southampton were playing very, very well. Now, obviously, a lot of their players do end up at Liverpool, but I think the way they've been playing, the way they've been set up, they do claim some pretty big scalps in the Premier League. I'm going to give Southampton 10th place. Now, the 9th place position I have might be a little bit of a shock to some of you. I'm going to go with Leicester. I think momentum carries a lot in football and in sport in general, and they didn't end the season that well. Ever since the restart, they kind of bottled top 4. It was very much within their hands, and they blew it. Obviously, Leicester have lost Ben Chilwell to Chelsea, and he is a good player for them. I'm not too sure. I mean, Vardy's obviously he's a year older now. He might be coming on a little bit. That's not to say he won't score a load of goals, but you know, you never know with this Leicester side. I think they're good for top half, but I don't think they're going to have the run they had last year. I think I'm going to put them here in 9th position. So now we move into the top 8, and I'm going to go with Everton to get back into 8th place. I believe last year they finished 12th, but the 2 years before that, they finished 8th, and Everton have been doing some transfer business, it does have to be said. The headline signing, James Rodriguez. This is going to be very, very interesting because he hasn't had the best last couple of years, but I do think he's going to play well under Ancelotti. And Ancelotti, of course, himself is a very, very good manager. And Everton will be pushing for European spots. They will be pushing for top 6, certainly. But I'm just going to give them 8th. But they could easily finish 7th. They could easily finish 6th. Like I said, this Premier League table is going to be wrong. It's just how wrong and where is it going to be wrong. You know what I mean? 7th place, I'm going to give Wolves. I was tempted to put Everton above Wolves, but Wolves have been very, very good at finishing higher up in the table. They've lost a few players here and there, but held on to some key ones as well. I think they are playing overall good football, and they know what they need to do to get into that top half of the table and to solidify themselves there. So I'm giving Wolves 7th. Now we move on to the top 6th. I'm not going to delay. I'm going to give this one to Spurs. And the way I separated Arsenal and Spurs and Chelsea and Man United is essentially, I guess, transfer window and the transfer window has played a huge part, but also I guess just a bit of form, particularly as far as Arsenal and Tottenham are concerned. Man United, on the other hand, are in very good form, but we'll get to that. Tottenham, I'm putting them in 6th, and I'm putting Arsenal in 5th. I think Arsenal have had a better transfer window than Tottenham. I think Arsenal are winning a lot of games. Tottenham, they are in decent form as well, it does have to be said, but you never know with Mourinho. He could have a fantastic season and Spurs could finish 3rd, but I think there's going to be some bumps along the road this season, whereas Arteta's a very new, fresh-faced manager, and he certainly has the dressing room. He certainly has the players on board. He's won the FA Cup, he's won the Community Shield. I know they're not... I mean, the FA Cup is a major honour for sure. The Community Shield, not so much. But they beat Liverpool. They beat Manchester City in the FA Cup. And Arsenal have got some good results. They just need to play better against the lower teams. And I think they will do that because they will back themselves to finish higher up. And they'll be pushing for Champions League football. Having barely made Europa League football last season, they'll want to make more of a statement in the Premier League this time around. So I've got Tottenham in 6th, Arsenal in 5th, and then the top 4, the same 4 teams as last year, with Manchester United coming in 4th. Now, at the moment, Jadon Sancho hasn't signed. We're not entirely sure if that is going to happen, but Donny van de Beek has signed from Ajax, which I think is a good move for them. United still look a little bit suspect at the back. Luke Shaw is definitely their first choice left back. Will probably miss games this year due to some kind of injury, as he often does. Wan-Bissaka, nailed on, great player. Harry Maguire, he will be at centre-back, and I assume Lindelof will play alongside him. I don't know if they'll get another centre-back in this transfer window. United's midfield looks very, very good, and their front 3 are performing pretty well, and they are strengthening in depth with these transfers, with the likes of perhaps Greenwood and obviously Dan James still moving down to the bench. So they're just bolstering up their squad, but I can't put them ahead of my 3rd place pick in Chelsea, purely because, I mean, Chelsea did very, very well last season without these transfers, and now essentially the players that carried them to where they were in the Premier League, Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, those players will probably drop down to the bench for the likes of Timo Werner, of course, Hakim Ziyech, who I really rate. I wanted him at Arsenal. I said it last year. I wanted him at Arsenal. I think there were rumours of him coming to Arsenal, and he didn't, which is a real shame. And, of course, Kai Havertz, who is in the process of, I think, doing his medical and potentially being announced as we speak today. So I think Chelsea are going to finish 3rd just on the basis that they had a really good season last year, and they've only got much, much stronger. I don't want to say better because you never know how these players are going to settle. Transfers do fail or do flop somewhat, but I think they've got a brilliant squad. They've got the winning mentality and they have the momentum. Now, who do I think is going to win the Premier League? This is very, very tough. I think Manchester City are obviously a strong team, but when you look at it, the way I separate the two teams is what has changed since last year. And obviously Messi, perhaps he won't come to Man City at the moment. Man City might get Koulibaly, I believe, and if they do, that would be amazing, because the way Man City fell so far behind Liverpool is because they lost so many games. And obviously if they have Koulibaly at the back and Laporte isn't injured, that strengthens them up massively. But Liverpool haven't really done anything different since being that formidable team. They didn't look that great in the restart, but they had already won the league. So I'm going to say Liverpool win the league. But I think Man City definitely could win the league, but they haven't been consistent enough to show me that they will, because obviously some of their older players are getting on a little bit. Sergio Aguero has had a bit of trouble with injuries. Kevin De Bruyne still top of his game, one of the best players in the world. I've been saying that for ages. A lot of people say, of course, he's absolutely unreal. But Liverpool show no signs of slowing down, and Manchester City, they just lose too many games that you wouldn't expect, like the Champions League. They lost against Lyon, and obviously having not won the Champions League, they will have one eye on the Champions League as well. Liverpool will want to retain the Premier League, and because I think Manchester City will be distracted, because I don't think they're going to get the headline signing that perhaps we thought they would, and because they haven't been as consistent as Liverpool, even though Liverpool slipped off a little bit at the end of last season when they'd already won the league, I think I'm going to give Liverpool the win and Manchester City second. So that leaves a top 4 of Liverpool, City, Chelsea and United. Probably the most likely top 4. And a bottom 3 of West Brom, Fulham and Aston Villa. So please let me know your predictions down in the comments below. I did originally, when I typed this out, have Manchester City to win the league. But when you think about it, what have Man City really changed and what have Liverpool really changed? And the answer is, for those two teams, because they're so far ahead, it's not a lot. Certainly confirmed at the time. Obviously, there's still weeks of the transfer window left, so you never know. But at the time of recording, I'm just going to have to give Liverpool the title, but I think Manchester City really could do it. I think they are the favourites as well, so a bit of an upset there, but that is going to do it from me. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe as we're on our road to 10,000 subscribers, the goal to hit that before the end of the year, and I will see you in the next video for my Premier League predictions for the Week 1 round of fixtures very soon.